So I started in 2016 and I thought I was going to study environmental science.
Hmm.
I was enrolled in the Faculty of Science.
Hello, Njoki.
Hi.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to welcome you to this podcast. And as you know, my name is Isaac Jonas, and I bring guests. And today I have the pleasure of having Njoki Mburu, and she's currently based in British Columbia in Canada. She has wide experience as a writer, storyteller, and like you like to call yourself, my friend, can you share an imaginative
Alchemist.
alchemist?
Imagination
Uh,
alchemist.
yes, and you tell us a little bit more about that in a bit. So today the conversation I'm going to ask and have a conversation about a story, and also personal finance and investing, her own experience. And then this is not investment advice, but just, having a conversation about our lived experiences, also her experience living in Canada, and also she hails from Kenya. So again, welcome. And do you want to share with us who is Njoki?
Yes. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me, Isaac, and
Yes,
for taking the initiative to put
yes.
these conversations forward,
Hmm.
but also being very raw about your own experiences with ups and downs through your podcasts, your
Yes.
posts on LinkedIn, and your
Mhm.
books. I hope that people who have had the chance to encounter you are able to really lend you the time you deserve to be heard and appreciated. So I give you your flowers now.
I appreciate you. Thank
Um,
you.
as you shared briefly, I can expand on a bit about my current state and just a bit about my past. My name is Njoki Mburu. As
Hmm.
Isaac mentioned, I am currently so gratefully living on the beautiful land of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh
Yes,
First Nations. It is
yes,
important for me to name that,
yes.
noting that I have come to this land not having any express invitation from the indigenous nations and communities that are
Yes,
the
yes.
territorial stewards of this place. So I have tried and continue to do the best that I can to move in solidarity with indigenous priorities and also the calls to action that have been put forward by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. With that said, I also want to name something that's so important for myself, which is that I am a Kenyan woman from the Agikuyu tribe
Hmm.
um, who is so proud of just my ancestry as a Kenyan,
Hmm.
and especially in the light of what has recently occurred and has been led by Gen Zs in my country following the finance bill of 2024. I
Hmm.
find myself just so convicted of the
Hmm.
leadership that is possible amongst my peers,
Hmm.
transformation, but also the legacy of great elders, including my grandparents and my family, who have been active in many ways to
Hmm.
challenge systems that no longer work for us.
Hmm.
Includes those that keep us in poverty.
Hmm.
So I'm just thankful for my grandparents. Truly, I really find it important for me to start with that and to
Hmm.
also appreciate every farmer on the continent of Africa,
Hmm.
especially the indigenous farmers, smallholder farmers. I'm so
Yes,
thankful for you feeding the world.
yes, thank you. Wonderful. I know you have an incredible story. We met at the University of British Columbia some time again, and we've ever since been friends. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do? I know quite a bit about you and what you currently do for work.
Yes, currently I'm a manager of a program in a national institute known as the Tamarack Institute. I've been working there. Actually, it's a pretty recent opportunity that I started in March,
Hmm.
focused on building belonging amongst different levels of communities across Canada. So
Mm-hmm.
in my team, I support with a program known as Communities Building Belonging, where we
Mm-hmm.
offer coaching, training, facilitation, and consulting for sometimes it's individuals, nonprofits, governments, a mix of that, um,
Yes.
to enable them and create conditions that uplift their work to build belonging, but
Mm-hmm.
also anchor them with resources, tools, and knowledge that can facilitate or catalyze the work they're already doing to build belonging. And this is in light of just the pandemic, no, the, what is it?
The
Epidemic of loneliness.
Yeah, the COVID epidemic. Yeah, most people, including myself, I used to think it was a pandemic, but it was beyond that. It was an
It was
epidemic.
beyond. It's an
Yes.
epidemic, and
Yes.
yeah, just learning more and more, but also with personal experiences of just sometimes of the sense of social isolation and loneliness that is
Mm-hmm.
increasingly affecting so many people around the world. Um,
Mm-hmm.
our team is really working to support all people who are focused on enabling connections, relationships, and a sense of belonging for their neighbors and communities. So that's what I currently do.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what I studied in school. And I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
I should like paint a picture of the journey
Please
that
do. Please do. By
okay.
all means.
By all means, grab your chai and chapati for my fellow Filipinos.
Yes, please.
What is the puff puff pastry in Zimbabwe?
Kenya and Zimbabwe, they actually, I also hail from Zimbabwe originally. And like there are some common foods, like,
Uh-huh.
sadza, that is made of cornmeal and meat. It's called nyama. And in
Uh-huh.
Swahili, folks in Kenya, they also speak Swahili and there are some common names. So I think probably you wanted to say, we call it sadza, which
Oh no,
is.
but the like mandazi, like the one made of dough, like fried dough, not ugali.
Yes. So the ones that are made of flour, right?
But
I
then
forget the English name, but yeah,
uh,
but it's something that is quite popular because we would find them on our, you know, breakfast table, or
yes,
mostly during Christmas time.
listen, delicacy.
Yes. Yes.
So people will be drinking that and eating that as I tell a bit about my story.
Yes.
And starting in university, I would say, um, I have my experience mostly having grown up in Kenya for about 18 years. And
Yes.
then I had the opportunity, I received a scholarship to go study for 2 years in Germany at a college there, which was newly established, which
Mm-hmm.
is part of an international network known as United World Colleges.
Mm-hmm.
So I did something known as the International Baccalaureate IB program.
Mm.
I did not know what I was going into. It was so hard.
I know.
Oh my goodness. But it was fun. It was so much
Mm-hmm.
fun. So after Germany, upon the just based on the opportunity, the scholarship opportunity that I received, but also the advice of our college counselor, I
Mm-hmm.
was able to come to the University of British Columbia, which we call UBC,
Mm-hmm.
and thankfully share the same scholarship as Isaac here, which is the Mastercard Foundation Scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
So I started in 2016 and I thought I was going to study environmental science.
Mm-hmm.
I was enrolled in the Faculty of Science, and
Mm-hmm.
after taking a semester where I had math, physics, biology, and chemistry in the
Mm-hmm.
same 4 months,
Yes.
realized this was not for me.
Yes, it's a
Oh
good realization, by the way.
thank goodness I realized early. But I was a bit confused about, so what do I do now? And
Hmm.
thankfully, because of a club that I was in, I met someone who shared with me who shared with me about another program that enabled me to combine the physical sciences with the social sciences.
Hmm.
And I was so thankful that I got the approval from my scholarship department, and just I was accepted into the other program, so I switched into a different faculty,
Hmm.
but retained a Bachelor of Science.
Hmm.
And by switching to a different faculty, I went to the Faculty of Land and Food Systems and
Hmm.
studied international development,
Hmm.
but with a subspecialization in global environmental policies,
Hmm.
global
Hmm.
environmental policies. And my interest was to look at policies in sub-Saharan Africa, so environmental policies back home
Mm-hmm.
on the continent. I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate, but I graduated right when COVID was starting, which was in
Mm-hmm.
20 April.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was chaotic. Oh my goodness. You know, when you're leaving school and you're excited because you know that, okay, a job and then this and then that,
Mm-hmm.
things just went.
Then there's a whole cloud of uncertainty in front of you.
That's exactly what it was. And so that summer, I finished my summer job as a student. And it took me between graduating to the time I started my new job, it took about 8 months to find that
Mm.
opportunity.
Wow.
Yes, it was incredibly mentally exhausting,
Mm-hmm.
emotionally labor intensive.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm so thankful for the long distance calls with my family,
Mm-hmm.
also the 6 meter apart conversations I was able to have with friends just to support each other,
Yes.
especially those I graduated with. We did interview prep together, we
Yes.
applied together,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the power of posting and asking.
Thank you for tuning in to this podcast. Only 31% of the people who tune in to watch this podcast, they are subscribed. So I want to encourage you to please subscribe so that this content can reach far and wide. Thank you again, and may the markets be with you.
And doing a lot of informational interviews that enabled me to finally find this opportunity and start where I started working with the provincial health services, which is a part of the provincial healthcare system here,
Mm-hmm.
British Columbia. And I was thankful enough to really learn over the course of about a year and 3 months or so. I was working in the Indigenous Health Department, and that was so much learning
Mm-hmm.
about healthcare, the social determinants of health, um,
Mm-hmm.
how public policy impacts healthcare, and
Mm-hmm.
how grassroots people are working to change healthcare policy. So it really was, connected to my interest in policy, although not directly about environmental policy.
Yes.
But after a while, as I don't know if this is an experience that you've seen or experienced, Isaac, but
Mm-hmm.
after a while in the role, just it became a lot for me to cope with every day because I was in the anti-racism department.
Mm-hmm.
I was
Sorry if I may interject. You were working as a facilitator, right? Was that
working
your
as
role?
a facilitator.
Okay, sure.
Yes.
This. Yeah,
I
sorry
was,
to interject.
oh, thank you. Yes, I was facilitating anti-racism workshops, cultural safety workshops,
Mm-hmm.
about a year. And when I took my leave, it was, I think, a year and 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to take this leave because I was experiencing an
Mm-hmm.
intense burnout, which
Mm-hmm.
I was able to learn about from my therapist and my family doctor, who told me about the symptoms of burnout. And
Mm-hmm.
those who are listening, actually, the World Health Organization has now just categorized and offered a definition of what burnout is,
Mm-hmm.
um, as it
Please
is.
share with us.
Yes, it is a health. It's a designated health issue, burnout.
Hmm. Okay.
And yeah, so I will share with Isaac the link so you can all see it in the
Post on the comments. Sure. Thank you.
back. Yeah. So it took me the summer of 2022. I was down. I was down, not
Mm-hmm.
energetic, just away from work, and I think the stress of that had I had kept on going for the past 2 years since
Mm-hmm.
all
Yes.
me, when you're so, I think,
Focused on, paying bills, doing, financially doing well financially, and not happy inside.
and also with, I guess for many of us who are listening and tuning in, there's
Yes.
a desire to like succeed and be ambitious, and perhaps that's how we've grown up with like
Yes.
we get it.
Yes. Yes. Keep going.
I continued with that. I'm like, okay, let's keep at it. But I think, yeah, my body, my mind couldn't do it
Needed
anymore.
a break.
I needed a break. And it was a really difficult time, 2022, where I first learned about like the lived experience of what depression is and
Mm-hmm.
just what loneliness is.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the time where I learned an important life skill, which may not appear on your resumes, but is
Mm-hmm.
important to have, which
Yeah.
is asking for and receiving help.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Full
Yes.
stop.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, so it took me a while to recover, and thankfully, later in that fall, which was November of 2022, I
Mm-hmm.
found a part-time opportunity, uh,
Mm-hmm.
which actually was a great way to re-enter the workplace instead of going full on as
Yes.
time. And this part-time was storytelling. Hello.
Mm. Just
Um,
being paid to tell your story and other people's stories. If I may interject, I know you are very humble. You have shared stages with people like Chimamanda. That's how good you are,
oh,
right? I know you're very humble, but I just wanted to put it out there that you're a wonderful storyteller and you have shared stages with great people. And you are very you tell more you tell us more about how you apply those skills. But sorry to interject. I just wanted to
oh,
appreciate you.
I receive it. I appreciate it. No, that was a moment that I couldn't believe because in the IB program that I talked
Yes.
about,
Yes.
my final essay, my extended essay, as people know, which is this big writing project,
Yes.
was on her book, Americana, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. And then here I am, like, I don't know,
Sitting right next to her,
and I'm
shaking hands.
interviewing her, and I'm like,
Yeah.
huh? Is this
You should
happening?
you should share a photo of you with her if you don't mind so that we can put it there.
Yes, I need to. I have one. I think I
Yes.
have one. Yes, but Chimamanda, if you're listening, I am excited to meet you again. Um,
Thank you. She's
anyway,
wonderful.
she is. Yes, she has written. She writes really, really well.
Yes.
So yes, storytelling indeed. But it wasn't like the typical storytelling, which was blogs or informal posts. This was
Hmm.
in the world of philanthropy, which
Hmm.
I came to really appreciate and enjoy.
Yes.
Um, because previous to this, I had actually first encountered a way where public policy and philanthropy intersect,
Hmm.
which is not something I had thought about in school much.
Hmm.
But because of a program, 6 to 9 month program that I participated in 2020,
Fellowship, yeah.
while looking for the job,
Yes.
this is before the storytelling. While looking for the job, I was able to complete 6 to 9, I think it was 9 months ish
Hmm.
public policy program specifically for youth, but it
Hmm.
was hosted in a philanthropic organization.
Hmm.
And we were learning about different levels of Canadian legislation. We were learning from renowned Canadian politicians and lawyers,
Hmm.
former politicians, people, young people who are working in grassroots communities, and
Hmm.
just there was so much. I felt so empowered to be in
Hmm.
that space and to publish my
Yes.
very first public policy brief. I
Yes.
can't believe that I did that,
Well
which
done.
I will also link that so you can read it because it's free and
Sure. Yes,
accessible.
yes,
I need to
please.
write it down. Public policy brief.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, now I was in the world of philanthropy. Entering with this storytelling was
Yes.
um, writing about how philanthropy
Hmm.
intersects with blockchain technology. I was like,
Mm.
what? What
What
is
is this?
that? Excuse me.
Yes.
um, and it was a lot of learning. Let me not lie, Isaac.
Yeah.
I'm thankful that the organization, which is the Community Foundations of Canada,
Hmm.
actually paid for me to do so many courses to understand
Lovely. Hmm.
what blockchain is. And at that time, and for now, people use the word Web3
Yes.
to say that it's the third iteration of the internet. Um,
Hmm.
but I learned the terms of blockchain, what are the different blockchains,
Mm.
who uses them.
Yes.
It was a lot. But, and there was a course also about the infrastructure, like the actual building and
Hmm.
coding. Wow.
Mm.
And so my work was to look at to imagine, which is why
Hmm.
I could imagination alchemist.
Hmm.
was to imagine what is the future of philanthropy. How can the future of philanthropy perhaps
Yes.
utilize these emerging technologies to
Mm-hmm.
facilitate more equitable distribution of capital,
Mm-hmm.
more transparent distribution of capital.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I had the chance to reflect on my learnings from these courses and write different publications. And I
Mm-hmm.
also had the chance to present at
Mm-hmm.
a large conference in Toronto
Mm-hmm.
in the summer of 2023, where we
That is
shared.
here in Canada.
Yes, at the CFC Reconnect conference. Yes, Toronto, Canada. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't believe it, Isaac, because the
Yeah.
summer before in 2022,
Mm-hmm.
I was in my bed, I was in my house,
Mm-hmm.
the windows are shut, I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to see the light.
Yeah.
And now I am here, not that
Mm-hmm.
I'm fully, I'm not fully recovered,
Yes.
but
Mm-hmm.
I'm better, where I'm even
Yes.
willing to talk to people and go
Mm-hmm.
outside. So I'm just thankful truly for all the community members
Mm-hmm.
who held me, and also just for organizations like these, which
Yes.
opportunity for people to learn in public, but
Mm-hmm.
also learn while working. It's not that you need to come in as a,
Yes.
but if you, one of my values is leading with curiosity, and I'm thankful
Yes.
that it was a value that was encouraged, supported, and the power of
Mm-hmm.
connection. If you're
Mm-hmm.
hiring
Networking.
emerging leaders, young leaders, people who are just starting their careers, how are
Mm-hmm.
you creating enabling conditions in your organizations to support them as they work? Because
Yes.
I always expect that they come in with so many years of experience, but sometimes
Mm-hmm.
we ask of that unfairly of people who are still literally trying to figure out their
Mm-hmm.
footing. And so that was a 10 month, 9 to 10 months of a fellowship, just writing about these pieces. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, the public links are available. There will be several links in the description.
For sure.
Um, and after my fellowship was complete, successful completion,
Mm-hmm.
I took me a while to now find. It took me about 6 months again
Mm-hmm.
to find this full-time position that I have just
Mm.
key skills that supported me through this period.
Yes.
One,
So it's been a very interesting journey. And so if you were to pin it down to maybe a few key skills that you would say, okay, this is what really helped me to get my next job, because I know you regularly write and post on social media, particularly on LinkedIn. What was that something, so that maybe if someone is in Kenya, in Africa, Asia, or any part of the world, they can probably learn from your story?
key skills that supported me through this period.
Yes.
One, I would
Mhm.
say I cannot overstate the power of connection.
Networking.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
At the number of cold messages I
Hmm.
sent,
Yes.
and when we were finally allowed attending conferences,
Hmm.
um, but also like the willingness of people to say yes is actually quite surprising.
Hmm.
I managed to message people who I was like, you know what, but let me put effort in
Yes.
writing thoughtful message. Don't just like, hey, I'd like to connect, but offer this
Hmm.
is this is the main thing I'm curious about. I see
Hmm.
that you have some experience in this or some skills in this that I would learn from.
Hmm.
You have X amount of time to meet with me.
That was through probably LinkedIn, I'm assuming.
Yes, I used a lot of LinkedIn, and I'm thankful that sometimes LinkedIn has these offers where they give you a
Hmm.
premium version for a few months,
Yes.
just try for free.
Yes.
So I'm thankful that I had, the chance to use the free versions.
Yes. To then have access to other high profile people. Wow.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So I did that, and people said yes. People kept saying yes, and
Because you asked.
I did ask.
Yes.
What also helped was I found resources actually through LinkedIn Learning
Hmm.
taught me how to ask good questions in an
Hmm.
information.
Yes.
And what so good, the
Yes.
amount of information I was able to get, but also like sometimes it wasn't always about asking for a job. It really was learning.
Building relationships, I
Yeah,
guess.
it was like, let me just learn about how are you where you are now.
Mm-hmm.
That was it for many of them. And then, of course, for some people, after we talked, they were like, by the way, there's this job coming up. And I'm like, coming up? It's not even posted.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah, I think it would be a good fit.
and then you like, sometimes they remember, sometimes they don't. And you're like, hey, you mentioned this. And then they send it. So that was one. And I think for, when, because it's not a lie that it can bring up some nervous energy and
Yes.
for some people, even a sense of anxiety. And
Yes.
to just reach out to someone you do not know,
Exactly.
online or in person,
Fear
and
of rejection.
there is that. And then there's also being like, am I even like, can I even talk to that person? They seem so quote unquote important.
The imposter syndrome.
But what I'd say is they're human, and so are you.
And
Really,
maybe they're actually the gateway to your next biggest opportunity. And sorry to interject, I will say that when I'm thinking also of the guests that I, invite on the podcast, of course, most of them, I'm connected to them.
yes.
But, I also have that. I want you to know that at some point, I also had
Yeah,
that fear. And one thing that I'm learning, the more I approach people, the more surprises that I get. Like, oh, Isaac, what an honor. I would be very much happy to come. So the question is, if I didn't ask, then I was just going to have you know, fear. So I think it's a good skill knowing how to ask and when to ask, but I think more importantly, being intentional about learning other people's stories so that when you reach out and when they finally open their door or an opportunity for you, you actually perform and you demonstrate that you're actually curious to learn more about them,
that part.
about their story, because people are more likely inclined to want to share, what they've
Mm,
accomplished. So,
you said it. That's it. I will forever sing it from Mount Kenya. Lead with curiosity. That's
exactly.
so key. So that's one key skill.
Hmm.
The other one is what I just mentioned
Hmm.
previously, which is ask for, yes, which is that, but
Yes.
receive help. Oh,
Yes.
there was I noticed that sometimes
Hmm.
there was this. I had a limiting belief. I'm
Yes.
I've heard of that term, limiting belief, which is
Yes.
perhaps an unproven um, thought or quote unquote truth that holds you back from something that you might truly desire.
Yes.
And for myself, what it was is that I needed to prove that I deserved good things,
Yes.
including receiving help or being cared for. And
Hmm.
so if someone does say, I'd like to sit with you and
Yes.
do your resume,
Hmm.
my friend, say yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes,
Hmm.
they do. Or if someone says, I'd like to introduce you to someone because I think you two would actually work really well together.
Hmm.
Please don't come up with excuses why you're not the person for it.
Hmm. Yes.
Oh, one of my friends, Mercy, says it so well. She says,
Mhm.
do not self reject.
Yes. Very key, Hmm.
So that's the second key skill.
The third one, right?
So that's no, I said two, right? How many have I said?
I think we were on two, and now this was the three, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
fine.
Oh,
Yeah.
this is the third one?
Yes. That you're about to share.
Yes, the third one. This is the last one. Thank you.
Okay.
Group of threes is good. The third one that I'm about to share, which was something that helped me move on from or move through this time, was it's not a skill. Well, I don't know if it's a skill, but I guess reframing rejection.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mm, Isaac,
Yes.
my goodness. There came to a point where I
Hmm.
was numb.
Yeah.
I
Getting rejections.
I would see the email saying we're sorry, and I would just like, oh, I feel nothing. Oh, I feel nothing. But I really like there was something.
You were burning inside.
There was a heaviness, but I just couldn't admit it. And that heaviness, if I didn't find the support I needed, then I made it about myself. I made it, oh, Njoki, look at
Hmm.
you failing. Oh, you're not good
Yes.
enough.
Yes.
It's important that we find tools like maybe books or mentors or elders or
Or even asking for feedback to those people who sent you those. Yes, I found it helpful too.
yes, and learning that it's not that you are you, the
Yeah.
being
It's not
as a,
about you as a person.
mm, no, your worth is not equated to that rejection or approval, but
Mhm.
it's you are not, or your skills do not perhaps match the opportunity.
Maybe it's just not a good fit.
Timing could be off. It could be so many factors, but it's important that I think we've seen this on LinkedIn and many other social media platforms, people saying um, rejection is redirection.
Yes,
So perhaps that's the moment to pause, ask feedback. Hopefully they give you. If not, okay,
that's
maybe
okay.
find a place where you can improve. And if you feel like you've done your best, then redirect and say, where else?
Made me realize like, well, it's not something that I should be intentionally thinking about for some time. I think you and I, thank you so much for sharing. You and I, we have had this conversation, and I'm happy to share this. That, for me, when I got those kind of rejections, I got to a point where I then had to redirect that focus. Now, what I'm doing is I'm inviting people like you talking about these experiences, but also in so doing, I'm learning new skills, video editing, running
Mm,
my own business. And then if a job that fits my particular, skill set comes through my way, then I will get it. But rather than me sitting and regretting to say, oh, feeling pity, I just decided to say, you know what? I have a lot of, privileges here. I've internet, I have wonderful friends like you. So why can't I redirect this towards something that, and the fulfillment has been great.
yeah.
And sometimes you get people reach out to say, hey, can you do this economic analysis for us? Can you do this? And it's like the universe is now conspiring towards the very things that I'm passionate about
Oh, look at
by
that.
default, right? So I think you share very important anecdotes there. Now, I wanted to ask you more a little bit about, your personal finance and investing. I know you do, like, set aside some money, what can you say about your experience here? Like, what are your views about, money?
Aha, listen. Woo. I would say for many years, that is while I was in Kenya and even in Germany, I did
Mhm.
not give much thought to
Mhm.
like financial planning,
Yeah.
financial wellness. I
Mhm.
was school, let's do school, money. The
Yes.
only part where I really thought about money was like, okay, how do we get a scholarship?
Yes. Yes.
So that, and yeah, I think, well, also there was like now in hindsight, I can see that I was able to observe from my family members how
Mhm.
the stories we had about money.
Mhm.
This is something I have learned through a course that I did known as the trauma of money.
Mhm.
And I came to learn I had believed certain things about money that were not
Mhm.
necessarily true, but
Yes.
because I had,
Like what, if you don't mind sharing?
I think for one, I had believed that, well, there's the common one that, people who have a lot of money are not the best people, which is not,
Yes.
it's not accurate.
Mhm.
But also the thing that I shared earlier about, needing to deserve good things, that
Yes.
also a limiting belief when it came to money is that
Mhm.
I didn't feel comfortable spending money on,
Mhm. On yourself or things that you liked.
no. It was like this needs to serve a functional purpose. Is it going
Mhm.
to rent, groceries? And
Mhm.
then it's over time that I've been able to say, oh, you can buy yourself this thing that you enjoy,
You
or
can
you
have wonderful experiences. This money can
be
you
a
can
trip.
book a vacation, you know.
Literally that. So I for me and my limiting belief was like money serves like it's a functional purpose. It's not for you're being frivolous and wasteful if you're
I'm laughing because I also kind of heard that, but also sorry to interject.
yes.
Uh, we I didn't have the chance to discuss about, money on the dinner table. It was taboo. It was something that was just swept under the carpet. And I don't mean this in a bad way to my parents, right? But the thing is, like, that alone, it made me realize, like, well, it's not something that I should be intentionally thinking about for some time until I read books and I started to say, look, I have to be honest with myself, how I'm spending my money, how I wanna build my wealth. So, yeah, thought I would just add that.
Oh, thank you for adding that. And yeah, same as that. It's not that my family were my direct teachers about these beliefs, but it's so many things that I had taken in, like even having gone to um, some of the settings that I was in school, and just seeing like the very distinct classes that we came from, economic classes, and
Yes.
having those narratives of like, oh, there's rich people,
Yeah.
so it's yeah. Sometimes they come from families, sometimes it's society, sometimes it's just I don't even know
Mm-hmm.
what planet they come from. But these beliefs have an impact
Mm-hmm.
on the choices we make. So for myself, it was when I came to Canada that I began to learn about the importance of financial wellness, especially because I was entering a stage in my life where I was so far away from home.
Mm-hmm.
I was definitely going to, be in that state for 4 years for sure.
You had
And
to be a responsible adult on your own.
yes, and with a scholarship, yes, you're paid for
Right.
the school and whatnot, but what happens when you're given a stipend and you're like,
Yeah.
and it's in a currency you don't understand, and you're like, oh
Yeah.
my goodness,
Yeah.
what do I do?
Yeah.
So thankfully, we had little workshops that taught us, like, that you could find, not find, but that our scholarship program was not just about learn like school, but there was
Yeah.
also other opportunities to learn from other scholars,
Yes.
other professionals. But I think it was learning while doing. That's what it was.
Yes.
It was learning while doing
Yes.
and fumbling or making mistakes along the way. So I learned over time about the importance of a credit card, because Kenya so far has been
Yeah.
heavily using cash, and
Yes.
that's changing.
Same experience from Zimbabwe.
Exactly, but that's changing now. We have a lot of more financial technologies that
Yes.
are being developed back home.
Yes.
Um, so learning about what is it to build a credit score, and
Mm-hmm.
how to use a credit card. Oh, debt is not always bad. Like not.
Yes. Yes.
I was so scared of debt. Let me tell you that.
Yes.
And yes, I still like have my own reservations, because sometimes,
Rightly so.
as we can see what's happening in my own
Yeah.
country, debt is
Mm-hmm.
causing a lot of challenge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There is reasonable fear,
Yes.
but over the 4 years in school, that's when I was learning by doing. With I hadn't yet started investing while I was in school. For me, it was
Mm-hmm.
learning the basics of how to budget,
Yes.
how to save. Those
Yes.
are, like, let me start with the basics.
Mm-hmm.
Once I graduated and it was Corona and there is no job being found,
8 months. That's when those savings would come handy, right?
it came in handy. But also, it was like not only savings, but also what's the mindset I will have to take up to ensure that I don't panic
Yes.
with
Very important.
what I have. And um, so I joined. What was it? Yeah, I was able to like get together with one of my other friends, and she's also very passionate about financial wellness and financial literacy. And
Mm-hmm.
so we were sharing like resources, we were sharing podcasts, and
Mm-hmm.
we were meeting. Like if we met someone who we think we could learn from, we would share with each other. And
Mm-hmm.
it started like that, just like those small things. But
Being
after,
intentional.
yes, but these podcasts have been helpful, and because
Yeah.
of it had to. One of the most important things I've learned is um, it requires a level of humility
Mm-hmm.
to grow in financial wealth and health, because I had to say multiple times, I literally have no clue what you're talking about.
You can know everything, of course.
No. And being like, can you share that again? Can you simplify what you're saying? And
Yeah.
now I'm thankful that we have a lot more platforms that people are learning from. TikTok.
Yes.
People are learning from
ChatGPT, AI stuff.
everything. So back then, there wasn't that. It was only
Yeah.
a few years ago, but all these things have made a huge difference now, because the learning is becoming accessible. And
Mm-hmm.
I, because of such accessible learning, even the Netflix series by Ramit Sethi,
Oh
uh,
yeah, he's a lovely guy.
Yeah, like podcasts like that, and continuing to talk to my friend, attending conferences actually,
Hmm.
um, other places, and actually even through the public policy program because we were
Yes.
talking about federal budgeting.
Yes.
This is like a big
Yeah.
thing. um,
Yes.
and also through my work of philanthropy, money has
Hmm.
become much less fearful. I'm like, bring
Yes.
the money here. Come here, come here.
Yes. Yes.
Bring the
Let
money.
me redirect the money to where it could go.
That excites me because I can now understand the money is a tool, and
Yes.
I want to use this tool, and it
Yeah.
excites me to use it for work that, for me, feels values aligned,
Yes.
and that includes taking care of myself, and when I can, sharing it with family.
Hmm.
And so far, like my journey in investment, I still feel I have so much learning to do, um,
Hmm.
because of the accessibility of things like robo advisors and
Yeah.
these 30, well, things like learning on YouTube, like you have
Yes.
to
Yes.
check your sources and
Hmm.
ask people like Isaac, do you think this is a credible source? Um, yeah, so those platforms have actually been able to have been able to me to be less fearful and take small like steps, but consistent steps. I
And
think
important
that's
steps.
so critical. Like to start, number one, but to be consistent because compounding
Yes.
it.
I want to spend some money on myself, be it going out, to have lunch with my friends, and that's they say it's the eighth wonder of, like Albert Einstein says that I wanted to follow up, sorry to interject, and I mean this respectfully, of course, you know, my friend, that you are relatively young, and it's like it's a good thing that you started this. I'm older than you, as you know, right? And the good thing is once you start, compounding your money, at some point it's just gonna start working for you. And then you'll be just, sitting and, maybe buying some experiences, traveling and doing things that you love to do.
And you
So,
can do that while building, while growing. It's not like
yes,
wait until I'm X years old
very important point there.
because nothing is guaranteed.
Exactly. And I think also balancing living in the present, having the best experiences, but also saving and planning for tomorrow. But it's not that easy. I was watching a podcast by this professor, Harvard professor, on this podcast. I forget his name. And they were saying, like, you know, a lot of people, when they make a lot of money, they generally find it hard to then spend the money. So
Mhm.
usually they were talking about the FIRE movement. I think it was also Remit Safe.
Mhm.
So being intentional about saying, you know what, I want to spend some money on myself, be it going out, to have lunch with my friends and maybe traveling. I love traveling, occasionally going
Yes,
to conferences, learning from other people. That's really the money should make our life more comfortable. So I've had to learn to how to spend the money because the other part of me is like, Isaac, if you are not careful, you're gonna slide back into, poverty, you know.
oh my
So you
goodness.
have to save, invest. So just having that delicate balance has been very interesting. Yeah.
Such a beautiful reflection, Isaac. Thank you for just like naming the very real fear and sense of anxiety that lives in some of us who perhaps have come from very challenging, economically challenging backgrounds. And just,
Yes.
when you, that's why I keep bringing up this trauma of money because
Yeah.
as much as you might have, as little as you might have, if
Yeah.
the story in your head is not allowing you to have a quote unquote healthier relationship with the money, it
Yeah.
can be all sorts of chaos. And so it's important that we really reflect on what are the experiences that I have
Yes.
lived through and what impact have those experiences had on me. And
Hmm.
therefore, what does that impact mean when it comes to my relationship with money?
And as we wrap up, I wanted to ask you, I saw your post today on LinkedIn. You mentioned that you were accepted at Oxford, and also London School of Economics. And how has that been, like that experience of you want to further, your academic like your school, your education, but sometimes you get rejection. I will tell you one story before you can respond. At some point when I was in Zimbabwe, I received three rejections in a space of 30 minutes apart. Okay. So I remember checking, I think it was checking on my phone, and then it was like, one rejection from, I think, Conin Callons, the other one was from the US, the other one was from DAAD in German. So I was like, what? So I remember sleeping on the bed with my shoes, right?
Mm.
But the next day I woke up and I asked myself to say, do I wanna accept this? What is it that I didn't do right? So I intentionally reframed, like you said, and then to cut a long story short, I applied to many scholarships, but I ended up, getting a scholarship to come to Canada fully funded, you know, and as you know, it's very competitive. But
Yes.
at that moment, if I had allowed that moment to be crushed by that situation, so I share this so that you also know that when you see people, everybody, sometimes people have scars, experiences, but being vulnerable like you do, you sharing that you get admission at, those prestigious schools, but still, maybe because of financial reasons. So do you want to share a little bit more? I shared a bit of my story.
Thank you for sharing. And I can, oof, just 30, 30, 30.
It's like they had conspired to say, let's send the rejections to
They're
him
like,
now, now.
today's the day. Well, thank you for bouncing back because look where you are. And
Yes, thank you.
yes, receiving the rejection from the University of Oxford and the London School of Economics was, well, no, I didn't receive rejection. I was
Just for
accepted.
the funding.
It was for the
Yes,
funding.
yes.
I was accepted to both schools, which is a dream come true.
Mhm.
Sure. But yeah, not getting the scholarship at the University of Oxford and still no funding from LSE. It's disappointing. It's
Yes.
disappointing.
Hmm.
For a while when I got the news, I went back to that tendency, a coping mechanism of just not
Yes.
feeling nothing and being like, no, no.
Taking
But
it personal, right?
I don't want to feel it. It was too
Yeah.
much. But then thankfully, I have people around me who have supported me to like really share and be like, man, that sucks. So
But
I
it happens.
definitely happens. It happens to many of us, not just with like scholarships, with schools, being
Life.
applying to jobs, applying
Yes.
dating, so
Yes.
many things. So I'm. How has it been since I received this? And it's yeah, been like up and down in terms of my capacity, my motivation to keep going and
Hmm.
try again perhaps next year. But thankfully, by talking to people whose opinion I really value, I have just been able to slowly regain a sense of motivation. But also because of the value of leading with curiosity, I
Hmm.
keep finding topics of interest that I'm like, maybe I could study this. I'm like, you know what, that rejection, maybe I don't need to study that program.
It's redirecting me towards someone.
So now I'm like, oh, that actually excites me more. And so I'm looking forward to see how I'll evolve. My interest will change, and I can feel them.
Yes.
And it's so exciting to just know that I did that. And I'm like, yes, we did
And
that.
you were accepted in those top universities. So that means there's something in you that they see.
This is
But I will say that this is not necessarily, advice, but I've also seen some people, in government of Canada, if, you are a permanent resident or a citizen, there are also people, take education loan. But the good thing from what I learned is that they are interest free for some time. So maybe that might be another possibility to look into. The other good thing of being in the global north, there might be other um, opportunities to access capital. But having said that, I think, that's something that I've learned that if you really want something good, sometimes you have to invest money into it. And then, of course, there has to be a good return on that capital.
invest
Okay.
in yourself.
Yes, in your education. So if you really feel strongly about that, degree from Oxford, or from London School of Economics, there are possible ways of, in addition to possibly saving towards that. Whether it's gonna be in 5 years' time, I was also I'm in this group where somebody shared this grandmother, this elderly person. I say this with respect. I think she was like 105 years, and she went back to Stanford to get her PhD, I think, or a degree. So, what does this moment teaches us? It's never too late, to accomplish your goals. I think for her, it's more about self-esteem and finishing that. So I think she had started the degree, and then later on, life happens, and then you come back. I've seen, I think, also in the US, I think probably Warren, I think at some point she had to come back, but just as an example, the politician, I think Elizabeth Warren, I think I read a story of. So there are many stories of people who at some point they thought like, okay, I was ready for this, but then maybe for financial reason or other reasons, they ended up not doing it. But, finding ways of then, going for that. So I hope that can motivate you as well. So is there anything else that you want to share with the audience, as a parting shot, or anything that you want to share? Because remember, you and I, we might be in this position, but there might be someone thinking like, how can I get to where you are? So what are the key things that you can share in conclusion to say that if I consider you to be successful at many levels, so I would say to be successful in whatever you are pursuing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. What an honor to be asked to have some final words. I the first thing and the one thing that has come up for me is a reflection of some of the words that one
Yes.
of my greatest heroes
Yes.
shared. Her name is Professor Wangari Maathai.
I've heard about. I think she was an education minister or something. She did some work in Zimbabwe, I think.
What? She did.
Yes.
I will not be surprised, actually. Yeah, she did do
Yes.
a lot of work across the continent of Africa, and also
Yes.
I had experiences in Germany, Japan, sometimes came to the US.
Yes.
Professor Wangari Maathai passed away in 2011.
Yes.
He was a Kenyan environmentalist and,
Oh, yes. Yeah.
and also a politician at one point, but more so an environmental activist
Yeah.
and leader. And she was also the first African woman to receive a Nobel Peace Prize.
Yes.
So I am so, so thankful for all the work that and the paths that she has paved.
Mhm.
And she tells a story of a hummingbird and a group of animals in the forest who were
Mhm.
fighting a wildfire. The
Mhm.
forest was burning.
Mhm.
The elephants were screaming. The
Yeah.
cheetahs were running. The giraffes, the wildebeests were all panicking. And they were standing watching the fire, being like, oh no, our home is being destroyed. No, they were just in tears and sadness, but they were just like watching the fire, feeling so heartbroken. And
Mhm.
then all of a sudden, one of the animals said, hey, look at that small bird. What is she doing? That was the
Mhm.
hummingbird. The
Mhm.
hummingbird is tiny.
Yes.
And the hummingbird kept going into the fire and out of the fire, into the fire and out of
Mhm.
the fire. And then they noticed that the hummingbird was using its very small beak to go into a nearby river, pick a drum of
Mm.
water, and come
Mhm.
drop it in the fire.
Mm.
And then go back and do the same. And then they started shouting, hummingbird, what are you trying? You'll never put out the fire. It's too big for your little beak.
Mhm.
Hummingbird was not discouraged. She kept going. And then finally, after all the complaints from the animal, she stopped. She looked at them and she said, elephant, I see you there with your big trunk, but you're doing nothing. Hippo, you and your big mom are doing nothing. But you know what I'm doing? I'm doing the best I can.
Mm. That's powerful. Well,
I have held on to that story and just remembering that I can choose to do the best I can
yes.
in in the conditions that seem impossible, but I can stand and face myself with integrity in the mirror and say I did the best that I can today.
Wow, what a powerful way of closing our conversation here. Thank you so much, my friend, for sharing this, and I hope the audience will enjoy this conversation. I'll put those, links that you have shared with me, please share them with me so that at least when, I'll put them on the comments and the audience, please feel free to ask any questions and she'll be sure to get back to you and I'll put your details on the podcast as well. Thank you again for the privilege of your time, and I hope at some point we will invite you back to the podcast and do have a wonderful evening that side.
Thank you. Asante sana.
Asante sana. Thank you, and bye for now. Okay.